All right, good people. It is Tuesday, May 30th. It is 53 degrees outside. It's pretty chilly actually. Let me go ahead and zoom that out a little bit. Got my side camera on here. We got all kinds of cool stuff going on here. Sounds like I'm coming through just fine. So as you know, lots of things going on. Lots of things going on. We got to talk about one here today. If you don't know, I will be getting even more and more involved in these things as I continue my run for city council. So, anyway, this information was provided to me earlier today, and we need to get into it. So, I need to go ahead and put up my fair use banner here. But this is a sign of the times. This has been going on for quite a while, and you can see that it is picking up speed. And you would think that this would just be coming from, let's say, the far right or whatever. But what we're seeing is these things are being pushed onto moderates and even so-called progressives. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into this now. I just want to get my fair use thing up here. Looks like I don't have one for this particular thing. Let me just type one in there. So fair use. I always have one on here. Find that. Here we go. Fair use. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for permitted by a copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, yada, yada, yada. All right. So what we have here is the director of the state's office for equity was just fired by Governor Jay Inslee. And we need to talk about this. So we're going to go ahead and listen to this news story, and we're going to talk about it. Okay?
I'm not the second person to do this work. I'm not even the 10th. I'm the first.
It was a job Dr. Karen Johnson didn't want at first, but the longtime activist has taken on challenges before, like police reform.
Our vision is that each and every Washington have full access to the opportunity, the power, the resources that they need to flourish.
She now considers her 2 years as the state's Office of Equity Director as the time of her life. Appointed in March of 2021, Johnson headed up a new state agency, a branch of the governor's office, with 26 employees, most who still work from home. She thought she was...
So I'm going to pause right here. There's a couple of things that perked my ears. One, that this office has only been around for 2 years. 2 years. Now, why 2 years? Well, what are we looking at here? The murder of George Floyd? Is that why this office was created? Was that the catalyst for why this office was created? What do you think? May 25th, 2020 was the day that he died. It is 2023. Might take a while because you're halfway through 2020 at that time. Might take you 6 months to a year to really get going on creating this diversity, equity, and inclusion push, right? You want to do more? Could that be the catalyst? So that's one question that I have for you. The second one that I found quite alarming is the fact that why did they have to mention that many of the people that work in this particular office are still working from home? How is that relevant to the story? How is that germane to this particular story? And I've shown you before how when you're listening either from newscast or if you're reading reports from newsprint, how it can be very biased and how they slip things in there. That has nothing to do with her firing. And yet, that's something that they put in there. Let's continue.
Succeeding.
I received many emails from staff across the state who said, thanks to you, Dr. J, I know who I am, I found my voice, and I'm using it. That's what I'm most proud of.
But last week,
now let me pause there. Many of us have been in situations where maybe we've been let go from a position. We haven't gotten a position that we applied for, but all the reviews were just really powerful and glowing. Oh, you're outstanding. You're phenomenal. You're wonderful. You are such value added. And so when you are fired, it feels like someone is pulling the rug underneath you. I know there are many of us that can identify with that, right? So her feedback from folks statewide is thank you so much. You're doing such a great job. You've changed my life. Let's see what Governor Inslee has to say here.
week, she was told Governor Jay Inslee's staff wanted to speak with her. Johnson thinks the governor's office felt her office had gone too far in calling for change. She says her office was about to launch.
You've gone too far in trying to invoke change. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? You've gone too far. So you want change. You just don't want too much change. So we have to be very careful on positions that are tokenized, that are there to look good. You can do a little bit, just don't do too much. Now, what's so crazy about this is, let me just play it here. Let me just go back a little bit. Go ahead.
She says her office was about to launch a new system to publicly track how state agencies prioritized equity.
What went too far?
So you're about to launch a device that was going to say, hey, how are you doing with equity? Now that's going too far, right? See, it's all good if we just kind of talk about it, we feel good about it. But if you really want to start pulling back the onion, peeling the onion back, and showing how these things are lacking in so many different sectors, when you want to show how things are systemic, now we've got a problem. Now you've gone too far. Let's see what the good doctor has to say.
Was our office was saying, well, you can do whatever you want to do. We're just going to hold you accountable and tell the world.
A governor's
now, again, no power. She had no power to do anything about it. We were just going to call it out. If there were no Black folks or disproportionate amount of the absence of Black folks in high positions, but where you would find these employees would be your janitors, your receptionists. And so if you're saying, hey, look at our numbers, we have this percentage of Black employees. But then when you look a little bit deeper, they really have no positions of substance. That's going too far. Again, her office didn't have the ability to do anything about it. They were just going to track it and talk about it and share that information out. Now, that's information that I would like to know for our own shipyard, our largest employer here in Kitsap County. Folks have been coming to me for the last year saying, hey, do you know where to get the numbers? I even asked at City Council. Do you know where we can get the numbers on the demographics of people hired in the shipyard? And what are they hired for? What's the process? What's recruitment look like? That's all she wanted to do. Okay. Well, she probably wanted to do more than that.
Her spokesperson says Johnson was fired because the office has experienced a, quote, lack of stability with high vacancy rates, turnover, and budgetary concerns.
All right. So let me go back and put this on the screen here. Because we're going to hear later.
In an email.
Go back. What you're going to hear later, which is kind of amazing to me.
Budgetary concerns. In an email sent to staff. Budgetary concerns.
Pause.
In an email sent to staff last week, Chief of Staff Jamila Thomas, staff budgetary concerns.
So the budgetary concerns you'll hear in a minute was they weren't spending the money. It wasn't that there was a misappropriation of funds. They were overspent, right? You hear about government officials that are flying first class or staying in crazy hotels and running up food bills and things like that. No, those weren't the budgetary concerns, right? The issue was a lack of stability, high vacancy rates. And we can talk about why those vacancy rates were high. But if you remember earlier in the article here, right? What did they say? They had to throw in there, oh, many of those folks are still working from home. So they're working from home, which clearly was to be a demerit, right? Which is why the news article pointed it out. But then there's high vacancy rates. So, man, you would think that what, to me, they were insinuating was, well, you know, people are just at home. They're not coming to work. They're not really doing anything. They're getting paid to do nothing, which many offices do still today. If you're paying attention, even what Elon Musk and Amazon, many other organizations were lamenting and wanting to get their employees back into the office, right? So this isn't unique to not only government, but it's also not unique to equity positions and departments. So high vacancy rates, even though many were still working from home. You see how these things are not congruent? So I want you to critically think when you're listening to these articles and you do your analysis. What's being said? More importantly, what is being omitted? All right, let's continue.
And budgetary concerns. In an email sent to staff last week, Chief of Staff Jamila Thomas thanked the director for her contributions, noting, quote, Dr. Johnson has taken on each challenge with enthusiasm and vigor.
I think with that.
Hey, you know, thank you for your work for the last 2 years. You know, they say if you don't have something nice to say about someone, don't say anything at all. Well, you know, she was enthusiastic and she had vigor. Now, she talked earlier about how she didn't even want the job. And she reluctantly took it. You can also see how nationwide these jobs are under attack. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is being dismantled nationwide. And so when you look at the thumbnail and you see Donald Trump and you see Desantis down in Florida and you know all the work that he is doing to erase American history, to erase the atrocities, to not make reparation, atonement, repair, restitution. It's alarming how you would say, oh, okay, maybe that's the far right. That's the fringe. White fragility, whatever you want to call it. But would you think that you would see that same thing in a Democratic stronghold with a progressive governor? So when we say government is racist and it's just two sides of the same racist coin, that the results end up being the same. This is what we're talking about. So it sounds good. I may even throw some dollars to it for a couple years, but then I'm going to dismantle it. And if all of these employees statewide were saying, hey, this is so great, this is powerful, oh, and she did it with such vigor, and it was having a hard time being staffed, and the budget concerns were centered around not spending the money that was there. And if you don't have it properly staffed, then you're going to have stability, right? Because you need to be fully staffed in order to do the job that you're mandated to do. On top of the fact that it's new, and if anyone knows, doing DE&I work comes at a great cost. It is tremendously unpopular. It is looked at as a zero-sum game. So knowing that, why would they not support the good doctor, but allow it to go on for 2 years and then you can resign or you're fired? Let's continue.
Was I showed up, I spoke up, did not try to fit into the culture. We're here to disrupt this. We're here to dismantle a racist system, root cause, and lead bold systemic change to transform state government to work for everyone.
She has no.
And that's where you have a difference in what your objective is, right? We want to create this position. We want you to do the work. We just don't want you to go too far. I didn't want the job, but since I took the job, I'm going to do the job to the best of my ability, and I am going to try to dismantle these systems. I am going to try to create equity. And we know there's a big difference between equity and equality, and when those two should be applied. What's the mission here? Promote access to equitable opportunities and resources that reduce disparities and improve outcomes statewide across state government. You know, there's a problem when they tell you that you're going too far.
Regrets or hard feelings. She knew the job would be tough and says there's much more work to be done. Her advice for the next director?
Know who you are and show up. Live your values and be you and do you without apology.
Can they? Can the next director actually do that? Or are they going to say, you know what? If I get in here, I may not have my job for long. So I probably need to go along to get along. Do the feel-good stuff. And then, of course, Governor Inslee is not running again, so we don't know who the next governor is going to be. That person may not even value DE&I as that work is being dismantled across the nation. We have to pay attention to this. This isn't just in Florida. This isn't just Ron DeSantis. This is Bremerton City Council. This is everywhere. And folks are tired of it. You know, during COVID, during the murder of George Floyd, everything was shut down. You had folks marching in the street. So it was a catalyst, right? The stars aligned in order for change to happen, for people to actually do something. The problem is that now that we're down the road a bit, and we've got NBA finals and NFL and travel, right? Travel was at the highest mark since COVID, since pre-COVID. Since folks nationwide have been trying to dismantle race equity work, American history, the atrocities that this country has done to Black people. The dismantling of reparations, conversations, and efforts. Could you imagine what would happen if folks were allowed to laugh, jest about reparations for the Jewish community? But yet that's what we see when Black folks are asking for restorative justice, reparations. See, when it comes to us, you don't even have to have any reverence or respect when you're talking about it, even if you have an opposite stance on it. But they wouldn't dare speak like that when it comes to the Jewish community. The question is, we're dealing with the recession. Evictions are increasing nationwide. Jobs ain't doing so hot. We have AI that is here that is replacing jobs daily. Jobs that are going to affect Black folks in low-wage jobs. Those are the first ones to be replaced. Automation. Conflict in Ukraine. We have all of these things that are affecting us. And you may say, hey, you know what? I don't have time to deal with DE&I stuff at city council or at the governor's level or at my job. And it sucks because there's only a handful of us there at this job anyway. And every time we talk about DE&I stuff, my own fellow employees, my coworkers, my subordinates, my superiors, they're all coming down on me. So I just kind of want to just go to work, just do what I got to do and get up out of here. But this is the reversal. This is the dismantling. As this country changes demographically, in the 11th hour, things are going to get worse. They're not going to get better. The system is going to fight like hell to hold on to it, even while it's dying. And you're watching it. We watch every day as people unravel, whether it's on planes or grocery stores, at schools, churches, birthday parties. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And so for those of you that were upset, angry, wanted restorative justice, when George Floyd was murdered, now is not the time to say, oh, it's all good. I got mine. One of our terminologies that have come up in the last few years is getting the bag. And so many of us are so focused on getting the bag that we're losing sight of everything else. They dangle that carrot in front of you. And you have more and more of us saying, hey, we're talking like far right folks. Oh, there's no racism. There's no systemic issues in place. It's all in your head. If you want to do better, you just need to man up. Yeah, there are some things that we have to do. We need to be accountable for our actions. But we also have to acknowledge the systemic issues that are in place. And if you ever have a doubt on whether or not they exist or not, look at how hard they're fighting to make sure that they're not there. People don't fight against things that don't matter or things they don't care about. So you don't want to teach Black history? Wouldn't matter if it didn't mean something. It means something. And as more and more people come in and wake up and get the truth, understand the history, they want justice. For every feminist, every woman out there that is full-throated on the Me Too movement, that believes it's okay to go back decades for Trump or Cosby or whoever else, should feel the exact same way when it comes to slavery, Jim Crow. All right. This is what's happening. This is your Democratic Governor, Jay Inslee. Now, I'm going to do another show here in a few minutes because we're going to touch on meritorious manumissions and what that means. And unfortunately, what we see in this country, what we see in this county, what we see in this city are Black folks that are next to white power, white structures, through grants, through contracts, through favors, that allow those systems to continue, to persist, to be tokenized. I'm the good one. I've got the access, so I'm good. See, some of us don't want to dismantle the systems. We just want to be the one holding the whip because the lashes hurt. So when we talk about the house slave and the field slave, and we see the imagery of a slave master whipping us, we see the imagery of a fellow slave whipping us. Some of us want to be the one holding the whip. And we're going to start calling that out. I know I haven't been doing a lot of shows lately, personal shows, but during my run, you are going to see a whole lot of me. And when I coined myself the Nat Turner of Kitsap County, yeah, I'm calling it out. I'm calling you out. We've done a lot of work in this county, done a lot of work in this town. We have elders that have been doing this work for 30 years. We have the Juneteenth committee that has been doing this, what is this, year 21, year 22? Grassroots, year after year after year after year, doing this work. And as I was telling someone earlier, this is not just a Black thing. I think this is a Western civilization type thing, where our youngsters do not respect our elders. And when I mean youngsters, I mean Gen Xers. When we talk about our Black history, we go back to Malcolm, Martin, and further back. But we don't look at our contemporaries, our immediate Black heroes that have gotten post offices named, who have done the work when they're burning crosses in Paulsville. We have no more use for them. They need to stand aside. It's your turn to shine. The difference between a lot of our elders in the work that they did is that they were doing the work. There wasn't a bag attached to it. So whenever I hear someone say, let's get this bag and do the work, the priorities are not congruent. And yes, it takes money to make change for sure. But the priorities are not congruent. If we say we need to dismantle these systems, if we say, because there are some that say you have to use the tools of the enemy, maybe you have to pick up the tool and you have to use it from time to time, but you cannot become consumed by that tool. Many of us are consumed by capitalism, consumed by the dollar, consumed. You can see it in what we wear, what we drive, what we buy. It's in our music. It's in our fashion. We hold value over ourselves and others based on what we have, what we can purchase. I submit to you, that's not a measure of a man. It's not a measure of a woman. It's damn sure not the measure of a black man. It's damn sure not a measurement of a black woman. And if you think you're going to do both and you're going to see the change, history is a good indicator that we will get somewhere, but we won't get far enough. The momentum has almost stopped. I was at a party on Saturday, and I was speaking to some elders and to some other folks. And the question that was brought to me, or the conversation I was having, was, is today worse than in the 60s? And some folks that lived through the 60s, 3 people I had a conversation with, indicated that they believed that it is worse now than it was in the 60s. That's a hell of a statement. Really think about it. What does that mean? No, there's no hoses. No, there's no billy clubs. Well, depending on who you are. But you might get murdered in the subway. You might get shot on your couch having a bowl of cereal. You may be run down like a dog while you're jogging. See, these things are still happening. And they seem to be happening in more and more frequency. No, it's not 1960. So you're not going to see a white sheet. No, it's not 1920 or the 1800s where you'll see a whip. The whip is a gavel. If the progressives, if the Democrats, if this is their play, and the Desantises of the world, the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world and such, already are full-throated on how they feel and what they're doing. Whoa. Whoa, black people. Whoa. They use woke as being a pejorative. Go woke, go broke. Your ass better not fall asleep because you might not wake up. I'm Marwan Cameron. This is The Con.